All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a story that's, well, it's a total paradox. It's about a mission that was an absolute failure, but somehow it turned into one of the greatest success stories of human survival ever told. We're talking about Shackleton's endurance.
So here's the central question, right? How in the world did 28 men get stuck in Antarctica for 2 whole years and every single one of them survived? Well, the crazy part is, this story doesn't start with survival. It starts with an ambition so huge, it was almost unbelievable.
Okay, so let's set the scene. The year is 1914. You've got this legendary explorer, Sir Ernest Shackleton, and he gathers a crew of 27 guys. His plan? It was just audacious. I mean, heroic for sure, but think about it. In an age with no GPS, no modern tech, he wanted to be the first person to walk clear across Antarctica, the entire continent. It's almost unthinkable.
And this slide, wow, it just lays it all out, doesn't it? The plan was a 120-day trek, 4 months. The reality? A 634-day ordeal just to stay alive. That's almost 2 years. So the mission wasn't just derailed. I mean, nature just ripped up the script and threw it away.
And let's talk about that plan for a second. We're talking about almost 3,000 kilometers, on foot, across a frozen desert where temperatures could plummet to minus 50 Celsius. Just think about that. This was a monumental, almost insane challenge before everything went sideways.
So where did it all start to go wrong? Well, it happened when their ship, the Endurance, sailed into the Weddell Sea. This place, it had a reputation. It was notorious for its thick, completely unpredictable pack ice.
And sure enough, on January 18, 1915, the ice just closed in. The Endurance was trapped solid. And not for a day or a week, for 9 agonizing months. These guys were frozen in place, basically prisoners on their own ship. Then, you can just imagine the sound. The immense pressure of the ice started to squeeze the ship, splintering the wood, crushing the hull. They had no choice but to abandon it. And just a month later, they had to stand there and watch as their only home, their last link to civilization, just slipped beneath the ice and disappeared.
You know, the fact that we can even see this story is a miracle in itself. Every single one of these haunting photos we have, they exist because of one guy, the expedition's photographer, Frank Hurley. See, when they had to abandon ship, each man was told they could only keep 2 pounds of personal items. And what did Hurley choose? He saved 150 of his glass plate negatives over everything else. I mean, what an incredible act of foresight. So now, just picture it. Their ship is gone. They are completely and utterly alone, 1,000 miles from the nearest civilization, just stuck on a floating sheet of ice. And this diary entry from one of the crewmen, Tom McLeod, it just perfectly captures the despair that must have been setting in. And right there, in that moment, the entire mission changed. It was no longer about exploration. That was over. Shackleton now had one single all-consuming objective: get every last man home alive. Period.
497. Just let that number sink in. That's how many days these men survived camped out on drifting chunks of ice before they ever touched solid ground again. We're talking nearly 500 days on an ice floe that was constantly breaking apart, melting, and drifting them deeper into the most dangerous seas on Earth.
So what did life look like? Well, it became this brutal daily routine. They had to hunt seals and penguins just for food and for fuel to stay warm. And this is where Shackleton's leadership really shines. He ordered everyone to ditch any non-essential personal items. And to set the example, he just tossed his own gold coins into the snow. He was proving to his men that from now on, nothing, absolutely nothing, was more valuable than their collective survival.
Okay, so after months and months of just drifting, the ice floe they were living on finally broke apart beneath them. This forced all 28 men into 3 tiny lifeboats. After a terrifying journey, they finally landed on this desolate, completely uninhabited place called Elephant Island. And yeah, they were on solid ground for the first time in 497 days, which must have been an incredible feeling. But this was no rescue. No, this was just the starting line for their most desperate gamble yet.
Now, to really get what they had to do next, you need to understand something called the Drake Passage. It's where 3 massive oceans, the Atlantic, the Pacific, and the Southern, all collide. The result? Absolutely monstrous waves and hurricane-force winds. It's literally known as a ship graveyard. It is the most feared stretch of water on the entire planet. And guess what? They had to cross it in a lifeboat.
So Shackleton looks at his options.
He's got three possible places to aim for to get help. The first two, yeah, they're closer, but they would mean sailing directly into the guts of the Drake Passage, which in a tiny lifeboat was just a death sentence. So he makes this brilliant, totally counterintuitive decision. He decides to aim for South Georgia Island. It's 1,300 kilometers away, by far the farthest target, but, and this is the genius of it, that route gave them their best shot at skirting around the absolute worst of the storm.
So here was the plan, as simple as it was audacious. Shackleton would take 5 of his best guys. They'd climb into one of the lifeboats, the James Caird, and they would attempt the impossible, a 1,300-kilometer journey across the world's roughest seas to find help. The lives of every single one of the 28 men now rested on this one desperate trip.
And somehow, against all conceivable odds, they did it. After 16 days of battling freezing waves and constant storms, they actually made it. But the ordeal wasn't over, not by a long shot. See, the boat journey was just one impossible task. When they finally landed on South Georgia Island, they discovered they were on the wrong side, cut off from the whaling station by a massive, impassable mountain range.
What they did next? It's just the stuff of legend, seriously. Shackleton, along with 2 other men, they had no real climbing gear, they had no map. They literally hammered screws from their boat into the soles of their shoes for grip, and with that, they crossed the island's uncharted 10,000-foot-high mountains. They marched for 36 hours straight without stopping until they finally stumbled into that whaling station. They were the first human beings in history to ever make that crossing. But even then, it wasn't over. Shackleton immediately started organizing a rescue for the men he left on Elephant Island, but it wasn't easy. In fact, it would take him 4 separate attempts over 3 long, agonizing months. 3 times he tried, and 3 times his rescue ships were forced to turn back by these impenetrable walls of sea ice.
And you know, that incredible leadership, it wasn't just Shackleton. It permeated the whole crew. While he was gone, his second-in-command, a guy named Frank Wild, had the job of keeping the other 22 men on Elephant Island from just falling into despair. And how did he do it? Every single morning for over 100 days, he'd give the same order. Pack your things, the boss may come today. He literally kept hope alive by sheer force of will.
Then, finally, on August 30th, 1916, Shackleton broke through the ice on his 4th try. As his ship got close to the island, he stood on the deck, counted the figures on the beach, and yelled out, "Are you all well?" And the answer that came back across the water was, "All safe, all well." After almost 2 years of unimaginable hardship, every single one of the 28 men had survived.
And so that leaves us with this final kind of mind-bending question. I mean, by any normal measure, Shackleton's expedition was a complete and total failure. He never even stepped foot on the Antarctic continent, which was the whole point. But by saving every single one of his men from a situation where there was literally zero hope, did he actually achieve something far, far greater? A timeless story of leadership, of endurance, and of the absolute stubborn refusal to ever give up.